The stars had always been silent. For 300 years, humanity had looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They built cities on the moon. They created farms on Mars. They mined the asteroids for metals and minerals, but they never found anyone else out there. The universe seemed empty, cold, and indifferent to the small blue world called Earth. That changed on a Tuesday morning in the year 2347. The first sign of trouble came when satellites around Earth detected a massive energy surge near Jupiter. Scientists watched their screens with confusion as 200 objects appeared from nowhere. The objects were enormous. Each one was the size of a small city, and they moved through space with a speed that should have been impossible. Within 6 hours, the objects reached Earth's orbit. They were ships. Alien ships. And they did not come in peace. High Commander Therek Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the blue planet below. He had conquered dozens of worlds in his long career. He had watched species beg for mercy. He had seen civilizations crumble before the might of the Vorath Dominion. This world would be no different. The Vorath Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had crushed over 400 species under their boot. Some they enslaved. Others they simply erased from existence. The Vorath believed they were the superior race, destined to control all life in the universe. Every species they met had eventually submitted to their power. Every single one. Therek pressed a button on his command console. His message would be broadcast to every device on the planet below. People of Earth, his deep voice rumbled across the world. I am High Commander Therek Voss of the Vorath Dominion. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities one by one until you submit. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. The message ended. Therek leaned back in his chair and waited. He had given this speech many times before. The response was always the same. Panic. Fear. Desperate attempts to negotiate, then surrender. On Earth, 12 billion humans heard the message. Governments scrambled to respond. Military forces around the world went on high alert. Emergency meetings were called in every major capital. The United Earth Council gathered virtually, with leaders from every nation staring at each other through screens. The hour passed quickly. When it ended, the council sent their response. We do not surrender. Therek Voss actually laughed when he heard it. A junior officer named Lyris stood nearby, and she noticed something strange. The human transmission had not contained any fear. No desperation, no requests for more time. Just 4 simple words spoken in a calm, steady voice. They are brave, Lyris said quietly. Foolish but brave. Bravery means nothing against superior firepower, Therek replied. He turned to his weapons officer. Begin the bombardment. Show them what happens to those who defy the Dominion. The Vorath ships opened fire. Massive kinetic projectiles rained down from orbit. They struck the Earth at incredible speeds, and each impact released more energy than a nuclear bomb. Shanghai was the first city to die. One moment, 30 million people were going about their daily lives. The next moment, there was only fire and dust, and a crater where the city had been. Mumbai followed. Then, Lagos. Then, Sao Paulo. Then, Moscow. In less than an hour, 5 of humanity's greatest cities were gone. 1.8 billion people died. Men, women, and children. Entire families erased in the blink of an eye. The destruction was broadcast across every screen on Earth, just as Therek had ordered. He wanted the survivors to see. He wanted them to understand the price of resistance. Therek expected screaming. He expected riots. He expected leaders to fall to their knees and beg for the killing to stop. Instead, something else happened. Across the planet, the survivors fell silent. Not the silence of defeat. Not the silence of despair. It was a different kind of silence. A cold silence. A dangerous silence. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. Then Earth sent another transmission. You will regret this. That was all. 3 words. Theric frowned at his screen. This was not normal. This was not how conquered species behaved. They were supposed to be broken by now. They were supposed to be begging. Curious, Lyris muttered. She was studying data on her console. Commander, I am detecting unusual activity in their outer colonies. Ships are moving. Many ships. Refugees fleeing, Theric said dismissively. It does not matter. They have nowhere to run. Perhaps, Lyris said. But she did not sound convinced. She had studied human history during the journey to Earth. She had read about their wars, their struggles, their refusal to submit even when facing impossible odds. These creatures had a word that did not translate well into the Vorath language. The word was spite. Lyris did not share her concerns with the commander. He would not have listened anyway. Far from Earth, on the gray surface of the moon, Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood in a command center deep underground. She was a small woman with gray hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. Right now, her face showed nothing at all. But inside, something had broken. Something had been replaced by cold, burning purpose. Her daughter had been in Shanghai. May was only 12 years old. She had been at school when the sky caught fire. Now she was gone. Along with 30 million others. Along with 1.8 billion others. Admiral Tanaka turned to face her officers. They were waiting for orders. Some had tears on their cheeks. Others had the same empty look that she knew was on her own face. They had all lost someone today. Everyone had lost someone. Wake the Leviathans, she said. Her voice was flat and emotionless. The officers stared at her. One of them, a young man named Chen, spoke up. Admiral, the Leviathans are only supposed to be used as a last resort. The Council has not authorized. The Council is dead, Tanaka interrupted. Half of them died in the bombardment. The survivors have given me full authority. She looked at each of her officers in turn. The Vorath believe they know war. They believe they understand destruction. They are wrong. They have never faced humanity when we have nothing left to lose. She turned back to the window that looked out over the lunar surface. In the distance, she could see Earth hanging in the black sky. Fires still burned across its surface. Her home. Her daughter's grave. They wanted war, Admiral Tanaka said quietly. Now they will have it. And they will learn why the universe should have left humanity alone. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden among the rocks and ice, massive doors began to open. Doors that had been sealed for 40 years. Behind them, something ancient and terrible began to wake up. The Vorath had made a mistake. The worst mistake in the history of their empire. They had assumed humanity would react like every other species they had conquered. They had assumed wrong. War was coming. And it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The galaxy had a simple belief about humanity. They were a young species. Primitive. Weak. They had not even discovered faster than light travel. They were stuck in their tiny solar system, playing with rockets and dreaming of the stars. The Vorath Dominion had expected to conquer them in a single day. The galaxy was wrong. Humanity had secrets. 40 years before the attack, a small research station on Pluto had detected something strange. A signal. It came from deep space. And it carried information about a vast empire that conquered worlds without mercy. The signal was a warning from a dying species, sent out into the void as their planet burned. They called themselves the Villani, and they wanted someone, anyone, to know what was coming. Humanity listened, and humanity prepared. The project was called Leviathan. It was the most secret program in human history. Only a handful of people knew it existed. Governments changed, wars were fought, generations were born and died, but the project continued in the shadows. Scientists and engineers worked in hidden facilities, building weapons that were never meant to be used. Weapons designed for one purpose only, to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. The weapons were terrible. Gravity lances that could crush a starship into a ball the size of a fist. Nanoswarms that could eat through metal like acid through paper. Pulse bombs that killed every living thing within 100 kilometers while leaving buildings standing. And the ships themselves, the Leviathans, were monsters of steel and fire. Each one was 5 kilometers long, powered by engines that burned antimatter, and armed with enough firepower to destroy a moon. Admiral Tanaka had hoped they would never need to use them. That hope died with her daughter. 3 days after the bombardment, the surviving leaders of humanity gathered for an emergency meeting. They met in a bunker, deep beneath the Swiss Alps, one of the few government facilities that had survived the attack. The room was gray and cold, lit by harsh white lights. The faces around the table were tired and grim. President Okonkwo of the African Union spoke first. Her voice was hoarse from days without sleep. The death toll is now confirmed at 1.8 billion. 5 major cities completely destroyed. Infrastructure damage is catastrophic. We estimate it will take decades to rebuild. If we survive that long, muttered Chancellor Weber of the European Federation. We will survive, said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at the man who had spoken. He was old, with white hair and thick glasses. His name was Dr. Marcus Webb, and he was the architect of Project Leviathan. The question is not whether we will survive. The question is what we do next. He pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed the Vorath fleet still orbiting Earth, along with detailed information about their ships, weapons, and estimated numbers. We have been studying the enemy for 40 years, Webb continued. We know their tactics. We know their weaknesses. And most importantly, we know something they do not know about us. He paused. They think we cannot fight back. They are wrong. He pressed another button, and the display changed. Now it showed the Leviathans. 12 massive warships, hidden in the asteroid belt, waiting. These ships represent 40 years of preparation. They carry weapons the Vorath have never seen. And they are fully operational. Webb looked around the room. The question before this council is simple. Do we use them? There was silence. Then Prime Minister Nakamura of Japan spoke. If we attack, they will send more ships. A larger fleet. Can we defeat that as well? Unknown, Webb admitted. But we have manufacturing facilities throughout the solar system. We can build more ships, more weapons. The enemy does not know what we are capable of. What are our options? President Okonkwo asked. Webb hesitated. Then he pulled up a new display. It showed 3 options, labeled in cold military language. The first was targeted retaliation. Destroy the enemy fleet and negotiate peace. The second was extended campaign. Drive the enemy from human space and establish defensive borders. The third option had no name. It was simply blank. What is the third option? Chancellor Weber asked. Webb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. The third option is total war. We do not stop at defense. We do not stop at driving them away. We find their homeworld. We find every world they control. And we destroy their ability to ever threaten anyone again. You mean genocide? Nakamura said. No, Webb replied. Genocide is the destruction of a species. This would be the destruction of an empire. Their people would survive. But their military, their government, their ability to wage war, all of it would be eliminated. Permanently, the room fell silent again. This was not a decision to be made lightly. This was a choice that would define humanity for generations. Finally, Admiral Tanaka spoke. She had been standing in the corner, saying nothing, her face blank as stone. They killed 1.8 billion of us, she said quietly. Children, families, entire cities. And they did it because they believed we were weak, because they believed we would surrender. She walked to the center of the room and looked at each leader in turn. If we show mercy now, they will come back. Maybe not today, maybe not for 100 years, but they will come back, and next time, they will not leave survivors. She turned to face the display showing the nameless third option. I lost my daughter in Shanghai. I do not want revenge. Revenge is emotional. This is not about emotion. This is about making sure no human child ever dies like May did, ever again. President Okonkwo closed her eyes. When she opened them, her face was hard with resolve. Let us vote. The vote was unanimous. The third option was approved. The Mercy Protocols, a set of rules that limited how humanity could wage war, were officially removed from military doctrine. From this moment forward, there would be no rules. No limits. No mercy. High above Earth, Therek Voss grew impatient. The humans had been silent for days. No surrender. No resistance. Just silence. His officers told him this was a sign of defeat, that the humans were broken and leaderless. Lyris was not so sure. She had noticed something disturbing in the intelligence reports. Human communications had gone completely dark, not the silence of a defeated people. The silence of people who had something to hide. Commander, she said carefully, I recommend we send scouts to their outer colonies. Something is happening that we do not understand. Therek waved his hand dismissively. They are primitives. They have no faster-than-light capability. What could they possibly do against the might of the Dominion? He would learn the answer very soon. In the asteroid belt, the Leviathans completed their final preparations. Their crews were volunteers, men and women who had lost everything in the bombardment. They had nothing left but purpose. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Tanaka watched as the navigation systems came online. The ships had FTL capability, faster-than-light engines that humanity had secretly developed from the Villani data, another surprise for the enemy. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. Tanaka nodded slowly. She thought of May one last time. Her daughter's laugh. Her smile. The way she used to run to greet her mother when she came home from deployment. Gone. All gone. Set course for Earth orbit, Admiral Tanaka ordered. Her voice was ice. It is time to teach the Vorath what happens when you attack humanity. The Leviathans moved, and the universe would never be the same. 3 weeks had passed since the bombardment of Earth. The Vorath fleet remained in orbit, waiting for the broken humans to finally surrender. High Commander Therek Voss spent his days planning the occupation. He had done this many times before. First, you destroy their will to fight. Then, you take their resources. Then, you enslave the useful ones and eliminate the rest. It was a simple formula. It had worked for 10,000 years. On the morning of the 22nd day, Therek was in his quarters reviewing reports when the alarms started screaming. He rushed to the bridge to find his officers in a state of panic. On the main display, 12 massive objects had appeared from nowhere. Right in the middle of his fleet. They had not come from any direction. They had simply materialized out of empty space. Impossible, Therek whispered. They do not have FTL technology. Lyris was at her station, her fingers flying across controls. Commander, these ships are enormous. Each one is nearly 5 times the size of our largest vessel, and their energy readings are... She paused, staring at her screen. I have never seen anything like this. Open fire, Therek commanded. Destroy them. 200 Vorath warships turned their weapons on the intruders. Plasma beams and kinetic rounds filled the space around Earth. It should have been enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships did not even slow down. Their shields absorbed everything the Vorath threw at them. Blue energy rippled across their hulls like water, dissipating the attacks as if they were nothing. And then the Leviathans fired back. Admiral Tanaka watched from her command chair as the first Vorath ship died. A gravity lance struck it amidships, and the entire vessel collapsed inward. Metal screamed as it was crushed by impossible forces. In seconds, a warship the size of a building was compressed into a sphere no larger than a car. Target the next one, she ordered calmly. The battle was not a fight, it was a slaughter. Vorath ships exploded one after another. Some were torn apart by gravity weapons. Others were consumed by clouds of nanobots that ate through their hulls in seconds. Still others were hit by pulse bombs that killed every living thing aboard, while leaving the ships drifting intact. Ghost vessels full of the dead. The Vorath tried to flee. They tried to regroup. They tried to coordinate their fire. Nothing worked. The human ships moved with impossible speed, appearing in one place, firing, then vanishing, and reappearing somewhere else. It was like fighting shadows. 11 minutes after the battle began, it was over. 197 Vorath warships were destroyed. The space around Earth was filled with wreckage and bodies. 3 ships remained, but they were crippled, their engines dead, their weapons silent. They drifted helplessly among the debris of their fleet. Admiral Tanaka studied the surviving ships on her display. "Prepare boarding parties," she ordered. "I want prisoners. Specifically, I want their commander." The Marines were volunteers, like everyone else in the fleet. They had trained for this moment for years, learning Vorath ship layouts, studying their combat tactics, preparing for close-quarters battle against an alien enemy. They moved through the crippled ships like ghosts, their weapons cutting down any resistance. The Vorath fought back, but they were not prepared for what they faced. Human soldiers moved with a cold efficiency that was terrifying to witness. They showed no fear. They showed no hesitation, and they showed no mercy. Every Vorath warrior who raised a weapon was killed instantly. Theric Voss was found on the bridge of his flagship, trying to activate the self-destruct system. A Marine stunned him before he could finish. When Theric woke up, he was bound to a chair on the bridge of a human ship. Admiral Tanaka stood before him, her arms crossed, her face expressionless. Around her, human officers worked at their stations, ignoring the alien prisoner completely. "Do you know who I am?" Tanaka asked quietly. Theric spat at her feet. "You are dead. All of you are dead. The Dominion will send 1,000 fleets to avenge this defeat. Your species will be erased from history." Quote. Tanaka did not react to his words. Instead, she pressed a button on a nearby console. A holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a city, Shanghai. Children playing in a park, people walking on streets, a normal day in a normal place. Then the image changed. Fire falling from the sky. Buildings collapsing. People running, screaming, dying, and then nothing but a crater and ash. "My daughter was in that city," Tanaka said. Her voice was still calm, but something in her eyes made Theric feel a sensation he had not experienced in decades: fear. She was 12 years old. She liked to draw pictures and sing songs. She wanted to be a scientist when she grew up. Tanaka leaned closer to the Vorath commander. "You killed her. You killed 1.8 billion people. And you expected us to surrender." "It is the natural order," Theric growled, but his voice was weaker now. "The strong conquer the weak. Your species should have submitted." "Perhaps," Tanaka replied, "but we are not weak. We simply did not want to fight. There is a difference." She straightened up and looked at her officers. "Prepare an escape pod. The commander is going home." Theric blinked in confusion. "You are releasing me?" "Yes. I want you to deliver a message to your Dominion." Tanaka smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only cold promise. "Tell them we are coming. Tell them there will be no negotiation. Tell them to look upon their worlds one last time. Because we will burn every ship, destroy every weapon, and tear down every monument to your empire, until there is nothing left but ashes and memory." Theric was thrown into an escape pod and launched toward Vorath space. As he drifted through the debris of his fleet, surrounded by the bodies of his soldiers, he began to understand something terrible. The Dominion had made a mistake. They had assumed humans were like every other species they had conquered. But humans were different. They did not break when you hurt them. They got angry, and when humans got angry, they did not stop until the threat was eliminated completely. Back on the Leviathan flagship, Admiral Tanaka reviewed the data captured from the Vorath ships. Navigation charts, military installations, communication codes, everything they needed to take the war to the enemy. "We have the location of 47 Vorath military bases within 500 light-years. her tactical officer reported. Shipyards, supply depots, communication hubs. Good. Tanaka stood and walked to the main display, which now showed a star map dotted with red markers. Each marker was a Vorath target. Divide the fleet. Each Leviathan will take a section of territory. We will strike all targets simultaneously. Admiral, the officer said carefully, some of these installations are near civilian populations. Then warn them first. Give them 12 hours to evacuate. Tanaka's voice hardened. After that, everything military is destroyed. No exceptions. Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle recordings that were spreading through communication networks. They saw the mighty Vorath fleet torn apart in 11 minutes. They saw the massive human warships that seemed impossible to damage. They saw something that had not happened in 10,000 years. Someone had beaten the Dominion on a dozen conquered worlds. Whispers began. Rumors spread. Hope, a feeling many species had forgotten existed, began to stir in hearts that had known only fear and submission. The Vorath High Council received Therek's report and dismissed it as exaggeration. The humans had been lucky. They decided. They had won a single battle through trickery and surprise. The Dominion would send a proper war fleet, 2,000 ships, and crush this upstart species once and for all. They did not understand what they were facing. They would learn. The Leviathans split up and vanished into faster-than-light travel, spreading across the stars like wolves hunting prey. The war had only just begun, and somewhere in the void, Admiral Tanaka sat alone in her quarters, holding a small photograph, a girl with dark hair and a bright smile. May. Her little May. I will make them pay, she whispered to the photograph. Every single one of them. The hunt had begun. 6 months had passed since the war began, and the Vorath Dominion was learning a new emotion. Fear. For 10,000 years, they had been the hunters. They had swept across the galaxy, conquering species after species, building an empire on the bones of the defeated. No one had ever seriously challenged them. No one had ever made them afraid. Until humanity. The reports came in daily, each one worse than the last. A shipyard destroyed in the Kethris system. A military base obliterated near the Vorn Nebula. Communication relays going dark across entire sectors. Supply lines cut. Patrol fleets vanishing without a trace. And everywhere, the same message left behind. Broadcast in every language the Dominion used. We remember Earth. We remember the 1.8 billion. We are coming. The human strategy was brutal and methodical. They did not fight like other species. They did not try to hold territory or capture resources. They only destroyed. Military targets were hit first, always with a warning to evacuate civilians. Then the Leviathans would appear, reduce everything to rubble, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. It was not war. It was systematic annihilation. High Arbiter Morath, supreme leader of the Vorath Dominion, called an emergency meeting of the War Council. The chamber was the most sacred place in the Empire, decorated with trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds. Now, those trophies felt like accusations. How is this possible? Morath demanded. His voice echoed off the ancient walls. We have ruled this galaxy for 10 millennia. We have crushed every enemy we have ever faced. And now a species that was supposed to be primitive is tearing our empire apart? Admiral Korath, commander of the Dominion's military forces, stepped forward. His face was haggard, aged years in just months. The humans fight in ways we have never encountered. Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. And their soldiers. He hesitated. Their soldiers do not surrender. Ever. We have captured hundreds of their vessels in battle. Not once has a crew surrendered. They fight until they are dead. Then kill them all, Morath snarled. Send the war fleet. 2,000 ships. Crush them. We did, Korath said quietly. The war fleet engaged them 3 days ago. In the Terminus system, Morath leaned forward. And? Korath's silence was answer enough. The Battle of Terminus would be studied by military historians for centuries. The Vorath had assembled the largest war fleet in their history, 2,000 of their most powerful warships. They had expected to overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers. What they found instead was a nightmare. Humanity had not been idle during the 6 months of war. Every factory in the solar system had been converted to military production. Ships were built at impossible speed. New weapons were designed, tested, and deployed in weeks instead of years. By the time of Terminus, humanity had over 5,000 warships. But it was not just the numbers that shocked the Vorath. It was how the humans fought. Admiral Tanaka commanded the battle personally. Her fleet moved like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where to be and when. They used the gravity of nearby planets to slingshot around enemy formations. They deployed weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. And when Vorath ships were damaged, the human crews would sometimes ram their own vessels into the enemy, sacrificing themselves to take out high-value targets. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, 1,847 Vorath ships were destroyed. Humanity lost 340 vessels. It was the greatest military defeat in the history of the Dominion. In the War Council chamber, Morath listened to Korath's report with growing horror. Around him, the other council members sat in stunned silence. "This cannot continue," said Councillor Veleth, the oldest member of the council. "At this rate, our military will be destroyed within a year. We must negotiate." "Negotiate?" Morath turned on her with fury in his eyes. "They sent back Commander Theric with a message. They said there would be no negotiation. They mean to destroy us completely. Then perhaps we should give them what they want," Veleth said carefully. "Reparations. Territory. Whatever they demand. We can rebuild our strength over time. And, no." Morath stood up abruptly. "I will not be remembered as the arbiter who surrendered to lesser beings. There is another way." He turned to a figure standing in the shadows. "Tell them." The figure stepped forward. It was Chief Scientist Drac, head of the Dominion's Weapons Research Division. His expression was grim. "We have been developing a weapon," Drac said slowly. "It is called the Star Killer. It works by destabilizing the core of a star, causing it to go supernova. Everything in the star system is destroyed. Planets, ships, everything." The council fell silent. "You mean to destroy their sun," Veleth said. "Kill their entire species." "They killed 1.8 billion of their own people and it only made them fight harder," Drac replied. "This weapon will ensure there are none left to fight." Morath smiled coldly. "Begin construction immediately. We will aim it at their sun and end this war forever." But the Dominion was not the only one with spies. Human intelligence networks had been growing throughout the war, recruiting members of conquered species who hated the Vorath. Within hours of the council meeting, Admiral Tanaka knew about the Star Killer. She read the report in her quarters, alone. For a long moment, she simply stared at the words on the screen. Then, slowly, she began to laugh. It was not a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone who had passed beyond anger, beyond grief, into something cold and eternal. "They still don't understand," she whispered to herself. "They think this will break us. They think threatening our sun will make us surrender." She set down the report and walked to the window of her ship, looking out at the stars. They have no idea what they have done. The report included the location where the Star Killer was being built. Vorath Prime, the homeworld of the Dominion, the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. Admiral Tanaka called her officers to a meeting. She showed them the intelligence. When she finished, the room was silent. "We have to destroy it," said Captain Chen. "But Vorath Prime is protected by their entire remaining fleet. Thousands of ships, orbital defense platforms, ground-based weapons. It would be suicide." "Perhaps," Tanaka agreed. "But we have no choice. If that weapon fires, Earth dies. Everyone dies." She looked at her officers. These men and women who had followed her through 6 months of war. "I will not order anyone to come with me. This is a volunteer mission only." Not a single person left the room. "Good," Tanaka said softly. There was something like warmth in her voice for the first time in months. "Then let us end this. Not for revenge. Not for glory. For the children who will never have to fear the Vorath again." Across human space, the message went out. Every ship, every soldier, every person who could fight. They were all heading to the same place. Vorath Prime. The final battle was coming, and humanity would not stop until the Dominion was nothing but a memory. 1 year after the attack on Earth, the human fleet arrived at Vorath Prime. Over 5,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They stretched across space like a wall of steel and fire, blocking out the stars. At their center flew the 12 Leviathans, the original weapons of humanity's revenge, now surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels. Admiral Tanaka stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the enemy homeworld on her display. Vorath Prime was a massive planet, covered in cities that had stood for 10,000 years. Monuments to conquest rose from every continent. The palaces of the High Arbiters dominated the skyline. It was the heart of an empire that had crushed 400 species. Today, that heart would stop beating. The Vorath had gathered everything they had left. 8,000 warships formed a defensive sphere around their homeworld. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Ground-based installations stood ready to fire, and deep beneath the surface, the Starkiller waited, nearly complete. "Admiral," Captain Chen reported, "the enemy is hailing us. High Arbiter Morath wishes to speak. Put him through." The face of Morath appeared on the main display. He looked old, tired, and desperate. The arrogance that had once defined his species was gone, replaced by something that might have been fear. "Admiral Tanaka," Morath said, "this war has cost both our peoples dearly. Millions of Vorath have died. Billions of your people as well. I am prepared to offer terms: full withdrawal from human space, reparations for the damage we caused, recognition of Earth as a sovereign world. All I ask is that you leave now and allow the Dominion to survive." Tanaka listened in silence. Then she spoke. "1 year ago, your fleet appeared above Earth. You gave us 1 hour to surrender. When we refused, you killed 1.8 billion innocent people. Children, families, entire cities." Her voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Now you ask for mercy? Now you want to negotiate?" "What happened was regrettable," Morath said quickly. "But it was war. Surely you understand." "I understand perfectly," Tanaka interrupted. "You attacked us because you believed we were weak. You killed billions because you thought we would submit. You were wrong." She leaned forward slightly. "There will be no negotiation. There will be no peace treaty. Your empire ends today. Then you doom your own people as well." Morath's voice rose in panic. "The Starkiller is nearly complete. If you attack, I will order it to fire. Your sun will be destroyed. Everyone on Earth will die." Tanaka smiled coldly. "You still don't understand us, do you? We are not fighting to survive anymore. We are fighting to make sure nothing like you ever exists again. Fire your weapon if you wish. Kill every human being in the universe. It will not save you, because we will destroy you first." The communication ended. For a long moment, both fleets hung motionless in space. Then Admiral Tanaka gave the order. "All ships, attack." The Battle of Vorath Prime was the largest space battle in the history of the galaxy. Over 13,000 ships clashed in a storm of fire and death that lit up the entire system. Weapons that could destroy planets were fired across millions of kilometers. Ships exploded by the hundreds. Debris filled space so thickly that navigation became nearly impossible. And through it all, humanity pushed forward. The Vorath fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. They knew what defeat would mean. They threw everything they had at the human fleet, sacrificing ships by the score to take down even one enemy vessel. But it was not enough. Humanity had spent a year preparing for this moment. They had built weapons the Vorath could not even understand. Reality shear missiles that tore holes in space itself. solar harvesters that turned the energy of nearby stars into devastating beams of light. And the Prometheus Protocol, a swarm of self-replicating nanobots that consumed enemy ships from the inside out. One by one, the Vorath defenses fell. The orbital platforms were destroyed. The defensive fleet was shattered. After 18 hours of continuous battle, the path to Vorath Prime was clear, but the battle was not over yet. Deep beneath the planet's surface, the Starkiller was charging. In less than 2 hours, it would be ready to fire. If it succeeded, Earth's sun would explode, and every human in the solar system would die. Admiral Tanaka led the strike team personally. 2,000 Marines landed on the surface of Vorath Prime, fighting their way through the streets of the capital city. Toward the underground facility that housed the weapon, they faced thousands of Vorath soldiers, automated defenses, and traps designed to slow them down just long enough for the Starkiller to complete its charge. They did not slow down. Tanaka was at the front, her weapon in hand, leading her soldiers through the enemy lines. She was 63 years old, and she moved with the speed and determination of someone half her age. For a year, she had lived for nothing but this moment. Nothing would stop her now. The strike team reached the control chamber with 20 minutes to spare. Inside, they found High Arbiter Morath standing before the weapon's main console, his hand hovering over the activation switch. "Stop," Morath commanded. "One more step, and I fire the weapon." Tanaka lowered her weapon and walked forward slowly. Her Marines surrounded the room, but no one fired. Everyone watched as the two leaders faced each other. "You cannot win," Morath said. His voice trembled. "Even if you destroy this weapon, more will be built. Even if you destroy our fleet, we will rebuild. The Dominion has survived for 10,000 years. It will survive you." "No," Tanaka said simply. "It will not. Then we will take you with us." Morath's hand moved toward the switch. Tanaka moved faster. Her hand shot out and grabbed Morath's wrist, twisting it away from the console. At the same time, one of her Marines fired a precise shot that destroyed the weapon's controls. Sparks flew, alarms blared. The Starkiller's charge began to dissipate harmlessly. Morath stared at the ruined controls, then at Tanaka. "Why?" he whispered. "Why will you not accept surrender? We can offer you worlds, resources, anything you want." Tanaka released his wrist and stepped back. "You killed 1.8 billion of us and expected us to submit. You don't understand what you woke up." Her voice was heavy with exhaustion and grief and something that might have been satisfaction. "We are not conquerors. We are not warriors. We are survivors. And survivors do not leave threats alive." She turned and walked away. "Take him," she ordered her Marines. "He will face trial for crimes against humanity." The war ended 3 days later. The Vorath fleet was completely destroyed. The Dominion's military no longer existed. The government was captured and placed under arrest. Across the galaxy, species that had been enslaved for centuries rose up against their masters. Within weeks, every Vorath-controlled world had declared independence. The leaders of the Dominion were tried in a public court that was broadcast across every planet in the galaxy. They were found guilty of genocide, slavery, and crimes against sentient life. But they were not executed. That would have been too quick. Instead, they were imprisoned on a space station orbiting Earth's sun. There, they would spend the rest of their lives, watching as humanity rebuilt, watching as the species they had tried to destroy grew stronger than ever. The Vorath species was not exterminated. Humanity refused to commit the same crime that had been committed against them. But the Vorath were stripped of everything. Their military was destroyed, their colonies were freed, their technology was confiscated. They were reduced to a single world, watched by human satellites that would orbit forever, a warning to anyone who might think of attacking Earth again. In the years that followed, the freed species of the galaxy formed a new government. They called it the Coalition of Free Worlds. Humanity was invited to lead it, to become the new rulers of the galaxy. They refused. "We have seen what empires become," President Okonkwo said in her address to the coalition. "We will not make the same mistakes. Humanity will be your ally, your friend, your partner, but never your ruler. We believe every species has the right to determine its own future." The galaxy had never seen anything like it. A species powerful enough to rule, choosing not to. It confused many. It inspired others, and it terrified those who had planned to fill the power vacuum left by the Dominion's fall. 20 years after the war, Admiral Yuki Tanaka, now retired, visited the Shanghai Memorial. It was a vast wall of names, billions of them, carved into black stone that stretched for kilometers. She was old now, her hair completely white, her body bent with age, but her eyes were still sharp. A young officer accompanied her. As they walked along the wall, he asked the question that historians had debated for 2 decades. "Admiral, do you regret it? The war? The destruction? We killed millions of Vorath, destroyed their entire civilization." Tanaka stopped walking. They had reached a particular spot on the wall, where one name was carved among the billions. Mei Tanaka. Age 12. She reached out and touched the name with trembling fingers. "They struck first," she said quietly. "They showed no mercy. We simply returned the favor." She placed a small flower at the base of the wall, beneath her daughter's name. The galaxy learned an important lesson from this war. "What lesson?" the officer asked. Tanaka turned to look at him. Despite her age, despite everything she had been through, there was still steel in her gaze. "Humanity does not start wars," she said, "but we finish them, whatever the cost." She looked up at the sky, where the stars shone bright and peaceful. Somewhere out there, the Vorath survivors lived on their single world, watched and contained. Somewhere out there, hundreds of free species built new lives without fear. Somewhere out there, the galaxy had learned to respect a small blue world called Earth. "Let that be a warning to anyone who might forget," Admiral Tanaka whispered. And then she smiled, truly smiled. For the first time in 20 years, the war was over. Humanity had won. And Mei's death had not been in vain. The universe would remember, always.